Hello, dear students. This is Dr. Sangeeta Jain, Head and Associate Professor, Department of English, DAV PG College. Because of the unprecedented situation, DAV College has started online teaching for the benefit of the students under the patronage of Principal Dr. S.D. Singh. My presentation today will be on Voices in the City by Anita Desai. Before coming to the discussion of Voices in the City, let's have a brief bio note of Anita Desai. Anita Desai was born in Mussoorie, India in 1937 of Indian and German parentage. Her works focus on relationships and family life in India, particularly the problems of women in Indian society. She has written for both adults and children, and she has won many prizes and awards, especially Winifred Holby Prize from the Royal Society of Literature for Fire on the Mountain and a Guardian Prize for children's fiction for her novel The Village by the Sea. Among her numerous other honors is also a Literary Lion Award from the New York Public Library in 1993. Desai came to America in 1987 and has been a professor of English at Massachusetts Institute of Technology since 1988. Since no writer is an island and every writer is influenced by previous generation writers, so definitely there are constructive influences also upon Anita Desai. Among the formative influences of the writers, early she was initially influenced by D.H. Lawrence, Henry James, Proust, Japanese novelist Kawabata, modern poetry of Rembrandt, Hopkins, and Lawrence. And definitely she was also influenced by Virginia Woolf's stream of consciousness technique and Jane Austen's limited scope, that is, the confined world. One book, one writer, or one work of literature has definitely left an indelible impression upon Anita Desai. She remembers reading Wuthering Heights at an early age, and she could never forget that, and she has written that the experience of reading Wuthering Heights seemed to me more interesting, more meaningful, and overwhelming than even the real world has seemed to me. Now I come to Voices in the City. What is the plot or the narrative or the storyline of Voices in the City? Voices in the City is based on the life of the middle-class intellectuals of Calcutta. It is definitely an unforgettable story of two brothers and two sisters. Nirode, a Bohemian brother, and his two sisters, Amla and Monisha, who are caught in the cross currents of changing social values. In many ways, the story reflects a vivid picture of India's social transition, a phase in which the older elements are not altogether dead and the emergent ones are not fully evolved. The novel also describes the bitter effects of the urban living upon an Indian family. Nirode, brought up in luxury and magnificence by an overindulgent mother, the protagonist Nirode settles down in Calcutta and becomes engrossed in its bohemian life. While his elder sister Monisha, she is a voracious reader, but she has got married into an affluent family. So Monisha, as a newly married woman, lives out a servile existence within the rigid and stiff confines of a traditional Hindu family. Amla sees the city, Calcutta, as a monster. Nirode sacrifices everything for his career, and Monisha cannot bear her stifling existence in the household of a wealthy, old Calcutta family. Now we come to themes. What are the themes? Voices in the City is an existentialist fiction about the meaninglessness of lives, which is devoid of commitment to a cause. Nobody is having commitment. Nirode is a journalist without commitment. Monisha is a housewife without commitment. Amla is an artist without commitment. So it is also a study of the predicament of the artist torn between aesthetic and material values. It is a narrative about the deleterious effects of urban living and a portrait of the dark, nocturnal side of Calcutta. Alienation. This is the major theme of Voice in the City. Now, alienation is one of the greatest problems confronting modern man, not only in 21st century, rather it was in 20th century. And in fact, 20th century, especially the post-war period, has been called the age of alienation. Human beings suffer not only from war, persecution, famine, and ruin, but from inner problem, a conviction, an isolation, randomness, meaninglessness in his way of existence. Now, there are several layers and kinds of alienation, that is powerlessness, meaninglessness, formlessness, and isolation, which are nothing but different manifestation of alienation. In today's society, alienation means historical discontinuity, loss, despair, with rejection not only at the past, but also the present. And it is this alienation problem that has occupied Anita Desai's primary interest. She has presented the dilemma of the modern individuals very effectively in this novel, Voices in the City. It is also a significant discourse on modern Indian feminism, as Desai portrays female characters, that is Monisha, Amla, and Mother, who, even when they fall victim to the gendered social hierarchy, destabilize and subvert the patriarchal underpinnings of Indian society. It depicts women who go in the opposite direction. Desai fashions in Voice in the City a culturally and historically specific text that participates in creating a new feminist ideology in Indian literature in English. As far as characterization is concerned, there are 4 chapters, and these chapters are entitled as Nirode, Monisha, Amla, and Mother. As if Desai is creating a portrait gallery of inner psyche of these characters individually in each chapter of their names. Desai's characters are manifested with the traits of introspection, introversion, incompatibility, and inability to compromise makes them lead a life of isolation. Her characters are not flat, they are round characters. They change, permeate, and grow psychologically under the stream of consciousness. The chaotic, conflicting, and the profound struggle in the inner recesses of human beings make her a distinctive novelist. Her novels are introspective and try to trace the workings of the mind in the struggle against the odds of the social and emotional worlds. Plot construction. Now, characterization. After characterization, we come to plot construction. Regarding the art of plot construction, Desai is definitely different. She never pays attention to external actions. Rather, she describes inner situations through which her characters suffer. Her characters are psychological victims. Desai seems to excel in drawing tightly strung, super sensitive men and women whose dissatisfaction with their surroundings leads to tragedy. Nirode, the hero of this novel, hates the world, which cannot offer him crucibles. He waits and waits, knowing that there was nothing to wait for. Now we will have certain snippets or dialogues from the text so that we can understand what is going on in the inner recesses of the mind, how they are unable to compromise with the situation of their world, with the present situation. Now Nirode has been described, in fact he himself describes, I am a congenital failure, that is a failure by birth. He says, you know boss, I have reached a point now. I always knew I would arrive at it one day, when it would be impossible, physically impossible to work under any man by his orders at a given time, at a meaningless job. I load those automatons at the top. I loathe their superciliousness, their arrogance, their blindness. How dare they be arrogant when working at such senseless jobs? Spend their lives, their entire energy and intelligence on something that doesn't matter? How can one? He seemed to be asking the stars outside, or rather the darkness. Better to leap out of the window and end it all instead of smearing this endless, sticky glue of senselessness over the world. Better not to live. He is an uncompromising character. He is not at all interested in working under any boss, and he is telling this himself to his boss. It's better to die than to compromise with the external world. He is not ready to compromise with his internal world. He is not ready to compromise with his internal world. Nirode is a one-dimensional character. In fact, all characters are here one-dimensional characters. Monisha. The chapter name is Monisha, her diary. Monisha commits suicide. Monisha is a newly wedded woman and she is interested more in reading than in saris. Now she writes in her diary, I'm glad they give me so much to do. I'm glad to be occupied in cutting vegetables, serving food, brushing a small children's hairs. Only I wish I were given some privacy. At another moment, she explains or she writes in her diary, Kalyanini throws open my wardrobe in order to inspect my saris and sees my books. I see that, of course, she cannot know that there is nothing to laugh at in Kafka or Hopkins or Dostoevsky or my Russian or French or Sanskrit dictionaries, but I wish they would leave me alone sometimes to read, or that Nirode would come again and take me away to sit under a tree with him. He has not come. As a newly wedded wife, she has all books in her almirah, and when anyone opens almirah, he or she gets books. So she is surprised why people laugh at my books. I don't love saris. I love reading books, and she doesn't get this much private time to read. Except I plead with him. Now she tells Nirode, accept defeat, accept insignificance, accept solitude. These insignificance, solitude, these are a truer gift than any communication, any art, any faith or delusion in the world can offer you. If he accepts, he will survive. If he doesn't accept, he will also end his life. Now, the third chapter is named after Amla. Amla, I say she is the survivor. Monisha surrenders, she commits suicide. But Amla, she doesn't surrender. She is a survivor. The glimpse of the hope she sees even in the nature. She says, those birds, they stay in the trees in spite of all those crowds around them. All that shouting and jumping and pushing. They won't give up their trees. They are not afraid. Isn't that strange? Now she is saying that these birds are sitting still in the trees. There are so many people in the garden, but birds don't run away. Seeing the hustle bustle of the people, even that there is a danger to their life. Amla, she goes to meet Nirode and she says, you are mad, utterly mad. You sit here by yourself and turn into a madman. You cannot live here in this foul hole, imagining the world to be depraved. It is you. It is you who are depraved, who makes love into something ugly and degenerate. Now we come to mother, Nirode's mother, one who is living with Mr. Chadda. After giving birth to her 4 children, now she is living with Mr. Chadda. Finally, Nirode, when he sees his mother, he says, she is Kali. Nirode cried, Amla, I know her now. She is Kali. The goddess and the demon are one. She is not only goddess. Kali is your symbol. Kali is mother, goddess, as well as demon. She kills all the negative forces. She rears also. She takes care of them. Kali is another form of Durga and Parvati. So Nirode says, she is Kali. the goddess and the demonic one. She is good and she is evil. In my mother there is goodness as well as there is evil. She is our knowledge and our ignorance. She is reality and illusion. She is also reality and she is illusion. She has given us birth. This is the reality, and she is also illusion because she is not with us. She is the world and she is Maya. Don't you see the amalgamation of death and life? Monisha's death. I'm sentenced to death too. Now I'm prepared and waiting for it. So he is waiting that mother would come and he would also die. Amla, she says, you are alive, Nirode. You are alive. You will stay alive. That was all about voices in the city. That was all about voices in the city. The inner turmoil. Anita Desai has been very successful in giving the portrayal of the inner recesses of the minds of the characters. Her characters are psychological victims. Her characters make their life. Many critics have said that Nirode, Monisha, Amla, they all create their lives hell because they are unable to compromise their situation. They are overindulgent in their thinking. They're extremely sensitive, oversensitive people. That's all. Thank you very much. We'll meet in another video next time.